Swayam Prabha, Digital India, Educated India.
Welcome to this series of lectures in soil technology. My name is V.S. Das. I am from Agricultural and Food Engineering Department at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Today we are going to talk about soil solid phase, specifically the mass volume relationships. This is the third lecture in this category of describing soil solid phase. Here we are going to talk about different kinds of densities in soil, and then we will use the densities to characterize the soil porosity and the void ratio. Then, of course, we will talk about an application of this mass volume relationship, how they influence the soil compaction characteristics in agricultural soils, for instance. So we have already discussed about the soil texture, and then of course we talked about soil structure. All of you guys now know that the texture describes the particle size distribution in soil, whereas the structure describes the aggregate size distribution. So in other words, in a soil, how much of these the soil particles such as sand, silt, and clay are there. That tells us a textural class of a soil. Whereas when we talk about soil structure, we look at how the different kinds of particles such as sand, silt, clay, or different aggregates, whether it's a man-made aggregate like a clod or a naturally occurring aggregate such as sped, along with the pore spaces, both the pores between the particles and the pores between aggregates or between particle and aggregate. So all kinds of interparticle and inter-aggregate soil pores, how these arrange to provide us a beautiful network of soil solids and pore space, making a beautiful soil fabric. So these arrangements can be a multitude of arrangements, n number of ways you could arrange the particles, the aggregates, and the pore spaces in soil, and you, as a result of that, get a diversity of soil structure. And this soil diversity in soil structure allows us to have soils with heterogeneous characteristics. The properties not only change among themselves, from one soil to the other. The properties also have a directional variation. They are not the same along all directions. That means they are not isotropic. That means they show an isotropic behavior. Heterogeneity is the variation from one soil sample to the other soil sample. But properties can also be variable in space. So basically, two samples collected from two different locations would have different kind of soil properties and soil attributes, and so therefore that spatial variability and as well as the temporal variability of soils, all of these are a result of how these soil particles and soil aggregates arrange themselves to provide us a specific structure at a given point of time and space for a soil. So therefore, what we have is that a soil typically having a pore network. So essentially, what we will have different sizes of the pores, different number of pores. So both the frequency of a specific pore size occurring or a frequency at of a specific aggregate size happening, giving us these concepts of soil as a porous media having specific geometry of pores, both in terms of size of the pore and in terms of the number of pores for a given size. So these characteristics providing us at different scales from millimeter for the particles to something like centimeter in the soil aggregates. These soil solid phase therefore give us what we see soils in an agricultural field. Now, because of having this pore space, because of having these solid spaces, when you look at soil, part of the pore space generally would have water present in it. And so therefore, when we look at a soil, and you look at the mass of soil or volume of soil, you have at least you can recognize 4 different kinds of quantities when it comes to masses and volume of soil. And so because of the water present, the soil can be having a moist mass. And so moist mass means you have this dry soil, and then part of the pore space or all the pore space is filled with water. So you have a fully saturated soil saturated with water, or maybe an unsaturated soil, means pore spaces are partially filled with water. Not all pores contain water. So nevertheless, this moist soil gives us a moist mass, which would of course change depending on how much water is present, leaving the dry soil. And so this moist soil mass is a variable quantity. And so this does not helps us mass in terms of characterizing soil. When we talk about characterizing soil, we would like to have the soil properties to be more intrinsic, more kind of constant, invariant with the conditions that under which we would like to study them. So moist mass basically changes with the condition of soil wetness. Therefore, it's not a very invariant property that we really use. Rather, the dry mass needs to be the one that we should be more concerned with. And when it comes to dry mass, again, this means that all the water has to be removed. And again, there is a qualitative aspects of that. What we have conventionally standardized is that the moist soil has to be dried for about 24 hours under 105 degrees centigrade to be designated as an oven dry soil. So it has to be dried at 105 degrees centigrade for 24 hours. The expectation is that with drying it at 105 degrees centigrade, all these water vaporizes, and leaving it for 24 hours, we make it sure that all these water vapor, whatever is the vapor phase present in the water upon vaporization, they will all diffuse out of the soil pore space, leaving no free water nor free water vapor in the pore system of the soils. But what, this is something that that is still a bit qualitative, because by 105 degrees centigrade of drying, you really don't remove a portion of the water which is, for example, has already become part and parcel of the soil, solid phases as their structural unit. Think about clays or water absorbing adsorbing to the clay surfaces. Those kind of water are generally not removed from the oven dry soil at 105 degrees centigrade. So nevertheless, the free water does not stay in these kind of conditions, and so the oven dry soil weight therefore remains more or less constant for the same soil, from as long as there is less, of course, the variability. So now, when it's similar to this masses, there can also be some differences in terms of the volumes. We can have a volume of solids only and volume of pore spaces. Now, of course, the volume of solids, soil particles are rigid, and so therefore their volume remains constant. However, this pore space can change from soil to soil depending on what sort of arrangement or relative arrangement, or in other words, what sort of the soil structure that you have in the same soil. So even if you have the same soil, you change the arrangement of particles, change the arrangement of aggregates. You can have bigger size plots or bigger size aggregates. You are going to have a different pore volume. And so therefore the total volume of pore can change. Now, so because this variability, because of the change in the total volume of the pores, the total volume of soil, which is basically the sum of the two quantities, the volume of the pore, the solid soil solids, and volume of the soil pore space, these two quantities, when they are added together, you will see that the total volume now would be a quantity that would change on how much is what is the total pore volume, right? So we have different kinds of masses, different kinds of pore spaces, and different kinds of volumes. And so therefore, when it comes to combining the mass with the volume, as we typically do in our description of the densities of material, soil as a porous media therefore has two different kinds of densities. One is called the density of the bulk soil, and that we call it bulk density. Here is the bulk density, and the other one, which is the density of the soil solid phases only, no pore space. And so that is called the particle density. We typically use the symbols of rho B for bulk density, and a rho with a subscript P, rho with a subscript P as for the particle density. And as the definition, we really link the open dry soil with the total volume in case of bulk density, and mass of open dry soil with the volume of the solids only for the particle density. So a few definitions that I have it here. This MS, I'm going to use it for mass of the open dry soil, that is your 105 degrees centigrade and 24 hours of drying. Then VP would be volume of pores, VS should be volume of solids, and VT is the total volume of soil, which is basically the sum of VS and VP. And so you can see that the definition is mass of open dry soil divided by VP plus VS for density, bulk density, and MS by VS for the particle density. Now, using these two quantities, this particle density and bulk density, it is possible to describe soil pore space in a more kind of defined manner, and we use a term called soil porosity to designate what is the relative volume of the pores in a soil relative to the total volume of soil. So we define porosity to be the ratio of the volume of pores to the bulk volume or the total volume of soil, VT up here. You can see that this equation can be a bit rearranged. Volume of pore can be a difference between the total volume and the volume of the solids. Divide that with total volume, and you have a relationship of 1 minus volume fraction of soil solids. So this is actually the volume fraction of this part is the volume fraction of the soil solids. So if you subtract that from 1, which is the total ratio, you will get the fraction of the pore space. You could also rearrange, reintroduce this mass of open dry soil, and then you will see that you can have this quantity, this second quantity here, the volume fraction of solid, as a ratio between the bulk density up here and the particle density. So the ratio between the bulk density and particle density essentially tells you, what is the volume fraction of the solid space. So that you subtract it from 1, that gives us an expression for soil porosity exclusively in terms of bulk density and particle density. Similar to porosity, we also have another quantity called the void ratio. This essentially describes the volume of the pores in relation to the volume of soil solids alone. So we use again the symbol E for void ratio, and both these quantities, the porosity and the void ratio, can be related to each other, and here is this these two relationship, and you can see that porosity equals to E over E plus 1, and similarly the void ratio equals to this porosity divided by 1 minus porosity. Now these quantities are very useful to characterize the voids present in soil or the pores present in soil, and many a times we use these two quantities alternatively to describe what is the nature and characteristics of the pore space. Now, remember that these characterization of the pore space is based on the bulk soil. So for a given soil, we have a fixed porosity if the density or bulk density is fixed, or or particle density is fixed. So essentially these are kind of bulk soil characteristics, a single value for the whole soil. Whatever is your unit volume of soil that you have taken, or whatever is your control volume, whatever is the size of your soil as a porous medium you have taken. So for that you have a single quantity in terms of density, bulk density or particle density, porosity, and void ratio. So these four quantities are measured mass volume relationships when it comes to a single like a single number for a whole soil. Typical values of bulk density would depend on what is the volume of pore space, and so the typical values for the bulk density for all mineral soils range from somewhere from 1 to 2 grams per centimeter cube. In other words, it's about 1,000 to 2,000 kilograms per meter cube, right? And so in our SI units, and for the soils that are high in organic matter, as much as at least about 20% organic carbon or 20% organic matter in soil, you will have densities come down to less than just 1,000 kilogram per cubic meter, or 1 gram per centimeter cube. This density, bulk density, therefore, is not a constant property, whereas particle density in soil typically remains constant at 2.65 gram per centimeter cube, or that is 2,650 kilogram per cubic meter. And this constancy of the soil particle density comes because as you have seen in the elemental composition of soil, our in soil on the Earth's crust typically should have around 65 to 70% silica or quartz, right? And quartz is the dominant phase in case of sand and silt, and so the densities of quartz and of course the densities of clays such as kaolinite, both of them are at 2.65. So therefore, the soil that we talk about as a combination of sand, silt, and clay, the density, the particle density of the soil generally is the particle density of the quartz or kaolinite, which is at 2.65. But at the same time, you need to really recognize that some of the soils can have other dominant mineral phases such as pyrite, or it could have which has a higher particle density, or say for example a lot of humus, organic matter. The soil is rich in organic matter, unlike our typical Indian soils which are low in organic carbon. And so you will have particle density come down from 2.65 or go up beyond 2.65, depending on what kind of the dominant mineral phases that you come across in a particular soil. So if we consider this particle density to be constant, here are certain values for bulk density. You will see that as the bulk density changes from about 500 kilogram per cubic meter to somewhere around 2000 kilograms per cubic meter, the porosity drastically change from something like 81% pore space of the total volume to as low as just 25% of the pore volume. If you take an average density of 1.4, you see that porosity is in the order of about 0.47. And when we talked about the description and discussion about the soil structure and the packing, we noticed that the cubic packing almost had about 48% porosity. So if you look at therefore the average characteristics of the soils, you would see that a soil that typically would have about 50% pore space. So if you're looking at a volume composition of soil, you could safely say that 50% of the total volume is occupied by pores, 50% is occupied by the soil solids. And when it comes to soil solids, people often also show or split it into the mineral solids and the organic solids. So typically for soils, if you look at the global averages, around 45% of the volume is about the mineral phases, around 5% by volume would be the organic matter content. But that is not the case for the Indian soil, because our volume fractions of the organic carbon is only in the order of about say 0.4 to 0.55% on the mass basis. And so therefore these numbers are for when you look at a volume composition of soil, you could safely probably assume 50% is the pore space and 50% of the solid phase. So these 50% of the pore space that you have is basically shared between water and air, and as the volume of water increases in the pore space, or greater part of the pore space is occupied by water, the air, of course, volume would go down. And so this water and air coexist, giving soil as a three-phase system. We have a solid phase, we have a liquid phase in the pore space, that is water, and you have a air phase, gaseous phase, which is the soil air. So it becomes a three-phase system. And sometimes from when you look at this volume composition of the soils often are also treated as a multi-phase system, more than even three phases. Sometimes you can have that the liquid phase can be an aqueous liquid or can be a non-aqueous liquid, such as a petroleum product, for instance. Petroleum reservoirs, soil is also serves as a reservoir for petroleum, and typically you will find that petroleum and water would coexist in addition to the air. So you will have an aqueous liquid phase, as in water, a non-aqueous liquid phase, it's in, maybe some kind of a petroleum product, and air, which is the gaseous phase, and of course solids, the mineral and organic matter, they are the solid phases. So these sort of mass volume relationships, that you could see that each porosity is kind of having a characteristic void ratio, and these are basically bulk properties, assuming that soil is a single unit, and of course, if you try to look at how these individual pores are there to really make up this whole pore volume, then of course you have to really look at individual pore size. You have to look at what is the frequency or what is the total number of such pores in a specific pore size group. So let's do a little bit of sample calculation, to know a little bit more about how these mass volume relationships pan out. And so here's a small problem. We say that we ask this question: what is the porosity of a soil with a bulk density of 1.4 gram per centimeter? And that's an easy thing, because all you need to do is assume that what is the particle density, and particle density goes constant at 2.65 gram per centimeter cube, or 2650 kilograms per meter cube in SI units. And so you take a ratio of the bulk density to particle density, subtract it out from 1, that gives you the porosity. The second part of this question is, what would be the oven dry weight? What would be the oven dry weight of the top 20 centimeter of soil in a hectare of land? As all of you guys know, 1 hectare of land is exactly 100 meter by 100 meter area. So this area, if you multiply the total the depth of soil, you will get a total volume of soil. And you already know that oven dry soil, you already know that density relates to the oven dry mass divided by the total volume of soil. And so once you know the total volume, it would be easy to for us to calculate the total mass of the oven dry soil. So here is this calculation. The porosity is about 0.47, as we said earlier, and the total volume of soil comes around 200 cubic meter. We have a 100 meter by 100 meter area extending to a depth of 0.2 meter, and so we have this 2000 cubic meter of the total volume. And of course, you multiply that with the density of the bulk density of the soil, you have this 28 lakh kilograms. So in other words, 2.8 million kilograms. So it's almost 3 into 10 to the power 6 kgs. So 3 million kilograms. So a 100 meter by 100 meter area with just top 20 centimeter soil, which is basically our depth of plowing. We say it's we call it a Puro slice. That's the a Puro that a plow is going to open if it's like a desi plow or like a moldboard plow running on an agricultural field would open a depth of soil up to about 20 centimeter. So you can think about the amount of soil it has to really work. The mass of the soil it has to work is in the order of about 3 million kilograms, and that's a pretty big amount of mass. And suppose you really want to look at how much force is necessary and use Newton's law, multiply your gravitational acceleration due to gravity, you really be able to calculate the kind of the quantity of force needed to work such a large volume of soil. Or you can use some kind of a velocity of the plow that is working, and all that force calculations, stress and stress strain relationships you will study in sometime soil mechanics in higher classes. So the next part of there's a next part in this question. So suppose we have such a soil and we really like to fill up the pore spaces with water. Now we have 3 million kilograms of soil in a hectare of land in top 20 centimeter of soil, but how much is going to be what would be the quantity of water? And to do that, you of course you have to estimate the total volume of pores, and we know the porosity is a ratio of the volume of pores to the total volume of soil. So therefore, multiplying the porosity with the total volume, you should be able to get the volume of pores. And volume of pores basically, if all of that is filled up, that means soil is fully saturated. You should be able to calculate the volume of water necessary, because volume of pore necessarily is going to be equal to the volume of water. And so you can see that the VP comes to be about 940 cubic meter. This means that we have this again almost a million liter of water. It's a million 9.4 lakh liters of water, almost like a million liter of water present in the in top 20 centimeter soil in just 100 meter by 100 meter area. Okay, so these calculations help us to kind of appreciate the mass of soil that we have, the volume of water that is present in our agricultural fields, and the mass volume relationships between densities and porosities and void ratios help us in estimating these sort of information and evaluate in getting this kind of information about the total mass of soil, total amount of water present in soil. Okay, so therefore a bit of summary on densities. Densities are, as I mentioned, they are used for estimating the porosities and void ratios. As we just did, we were able to estimate the total mass of soil in a large volume of soil, such as 100 meter by 100 meter by 0.2 meter depth, and you couldn't really take that kind of soil and put it in a balance to really find out what is the mass of it. And so for large volume, if you want to know the weight of a soil, density comes in handy. You could really get the soil wetness, and you can also know some kind of degree of soil compaction, because densities basically is a measure. Bulk density is basically also it's a measure of how much is the pore space present, and if the pore space is reduced, because you could not compress the solid phase, but pore space can be reduced, and reducing the total volume of soil, leading to the compaction. And so therefore you could know what is the degree of soil compaction from soil bulk density. And of course, because the pore space does not remain constant from soil for even the same soil, so therefore bulk density is not a constant. Bulk density also change, so it is not an invariant quantity in case of soil. It is variable. Bulk density is measured in the laboratory using a core method or a Claude method, or you could really use some kind of a depth density probe where the gamma radiations are used to estimate the densities, and so therefore you could use these kind of methods. And these methods, when you go to the laboratory, you will be in a position to measure it. It's very, very simple. All you need to know is the total oven dry mass, and you need to know what is the volume of that dry soil, the total volume, and you have the ratio giving you the density of the soil. Similarly, a summary on particle density. Particle densities are needed again for porosity and void ratio. You remember in our soil texture analysis, we use the density of soil solid particles in our sedimentation cylinder experiment and in our settling velocity expression, we had this rho s, which is the density of the soil solid, and that is the particle density, and so that is needed there. And of course, particle density is an intrinsic quantity and measure of heaviness or lightness of particles. So therefore, the movement of particles, whether through water in the process of runoff or through wind in the process of erosion, the particle density is also needed. Unlike this non-invariant property of bulk density, for all mineral soils, particle density may be practically assumed constant at 2,650 kilograms per cubic meter, because this is the density also for the dominant mineral phases, both the primary minerals of quartz and the secondary minerals of clays, and so therefore the mineral soils typically would have a constant particle density, unless you have things like pyrites and all, or unless you have soil which is have dominantly organic in nature, having more humus in it. So this is the particle density. Particle density you can measure using this specific gravity bottles, which is called the pycnometer, where this volume of the soil solid alone are estimated from the Archimedes principle, from the mass and density of the liquid displaced by the solid particles in a specific gravity bottle. And so these, again, very simple laboratory protocols are there. You should be having no problem in estimating or measuring the particle density of the soil. So let us look at a bit more detailed into this porosity and this pore space, and how they evolve in soil as a porous media. So earlier, while describing this soil structure, we showed you that when we talk about particles, solid particles arranging in soil structure, there is a relative arrangement of the particles. In other words, individual grains of soil particles, whether it's a sand, silt, clay, or whether it is a soil aggregates themselves, they need to be really arranged relative to each other. And we showed that if you are talking about a cubic arrangement, you have the total number of spheres that you will need to fill up a cuboid or a cubical shape of volume would be basically the ratio L over D. D is the diameter of individual particle raised to the power of 3. Right? This relationship we showed while discussing about soil structure, and of course, if such a thing we consider, then, and if you have n number of soil sphere and soil particles filling up, and you assume that the particles are of course spherical, and then therefore the total volume of soil that we estimated in that class is to be by L cube over 6. And we know the bulk volume of that cell, which is about is L cube, and we now know the bulk volume of the solids alone, and so we should be able to get an expression for a porosity, and we estimated that to be about 48% or 0.4764. Similarly, for this condition, we also estimated the void ratio. Right? This is what we did when we described the soil structure. So what you are looking at is essentially a space filled up with different particles with their sizes, maybe spherical in this case, right? And so the resulting result is that you have some kind of a bulk pore volume, which is the total. If your total volume, if you consider 1, then the pore space is going to be about 0.48, 0.4764 to be precise, right? So this is looking at the whole thing as a single unit. But what happens to individual pore sizes? How many such pores we are going to really expect? Well, that would of course change. Change if you change the way each particles are arranged, right? And of course, it will also change if the sizes of every particle are different, and their shape is different from say a spheroidal shape. Right? Think about, we talked about different kinds of shapes, spheroidal, plate-like, and so on and so forth. And so if it's an irregular shape, if it is not of the same size, and if the number of such particles change, and then of course you are going to see the individual pore sizes to be different. So let us kind of see how we can have a feel for what sort of difference you are going to look at when it comes to an individual pore size versus the overall pore space. That's the idea. So what we are going to do is relook at this space filling exercise of having a sphere filling up exactly a cuboid again. So what we have is a porosity, which is the ratio between the volume of pores to the volume of total volume of the soil to be about 0.4764. So if you look at this, if I want to know the volume of the pore, it should come what? It should be about 0.4764 times d cube. So imagine that we are kind of looking at a unit control volume of a particular it's in a bigger cuboid. If you imagine bigger three-dimensional body as the soil is, what you are going to see that the volume of pore created by or associated with every particle having a diameter of d can be linked to the diameter of the particle, right? Now, if you assume for a second the pore is also spherical, I should be, I should be able to kind of estimate what sort of a radius that I might really have, So here is an approach that I show. Imagine that, I have a, cuboid shape of the pore, right? And cuboid shape for the total volume of the pore and the solid, right? So I should be, in principle, can write volume of pores to be the diameter raised to the power 3, because that's the equivalent sort of cuboid that form for the empty space, right? And of course, if you do that, then the diameter of the pore is going to be the 0.4764 raised to the power 1/3 times the diameter of the particle. And that, when you raise 0.4764 to the power 1/3, that number is about 0.78. So essentially what you have here is a relationship between the diameter of the pore associated with the, or in other words, kind of size of the pore associated with the size of the particle in a total volume, right? And so this is kind of a sort of giving you an impression about what would be the characteristic length scale for a pore space, which you may assume that it's cuboid in shape, okay? And what would be the size of the solid, if you are assuming as a cuboid. Both the cuboids added together have the total volume Vt, right? And if you have that, so you have a linear relationship between the scale of the characteristic scale of the size, pore, and characteristic scale of the particle, right? And you could be a little bit, more general and write a more general expression that the length scale of a pore is going to be a constant alpha, which is about what, 0.78, multiplied by the length scale of the particle raised to the power a constant beta, and in this case it is what? So beta is equal to 1. Right? So these sort of general kind of equation you can formulate between, length scale of a pore and length scale of a particle. And so if we are considering length scale on both the particle and the pores are spherical, the length scales are going to be what? Diameter of the pore and diameter of the particle, Well, this simple sort of representation allows us to look at, or recreate or sort of a quantitatively link, what is going to be the length of a pore in soil. Well, one of the big challenges in soil, in studying pore space in soil as a natural porous medium, is that the pore sizes goes somewhere from sub-micron. If you look at this equation, if indeed really diameter of a particle is linearly related or related as even as a power function to the diameter of the particle, so we know these clays are the diameter of the clays are less than 2 micron, and so therefore diameter of the pore size, pores of the sizes of the clay or associated with clays are going to be sub-micron size pores. And if you look at, larger grains such as a sand, and of course in those cases the pore sizes are going to be in the order of millimeters, right? So you are looking at, or you are looking at pore spaces ranging from almost what, 3 orders of magnitude, right? From microns to millimeter. A millimeter is 1,000 micron, right? So therefore, you will see a wide range of, pore size and very small. It is very difficult to, enter into such a space and have a sensor or a ruler measure what is the distance or what is the diameter of an individual pores. So what we see here is that typically what we see in soils generally, the value of alpha range somewhere around 0.2 to about 0.4, and many times we just use 0.4 for such a value. So let us again look at revisit our let us revisit our dry sieving data. So we know that in our dry sieving we were able to separate physically soils having different aggregate sizes, and so we had this sieve diameter, we had this sieve, the pore diameter in a sieve, and of course we had our sieve weight and the weight of the sieve plus soil, and from there we were able to calculate what is the mass of soil present, and then so now let us sort of see what happens if I really use this real linear relationship between the diameter of the pore and the diameter of particle, and then let us even go ahead use this 0.78 as we observe in a cubic type of arrangement. And we know that the particle density is constant at 2.65 grams per centimeter cube. And now we know that each of these different size groups for aggregates, we have a corresponding mass of soil, and so this comes because if we really assume some kind of an average diameter of the aggregate, and we have so many number of aggregates, therefore we have about 808 grams of soil. So if we were to estimate what is the mass of each aggregate, all we have to do is estimate what is the volume of aggregate from the diameter of the aggregate and multiply the particle density, right? Because we know that particle density is the oven dry mass divided by the volume of the solids, right? So therefore, knowing the volume of solids from the diameter of the aggregate, we should be in a position to estimate the mass of each aggregate, right? With a diameter corresponding to whatever is the diameter we got from the sieving data. Once we know what is the mass of each aggregate, we already know what is the mass of soil of the total number of aggregates. So therefore, we should be able to find out what is the number of aggregates in each size class. What would be that? That would be the total mass of aggregates with a size class divided by the mass of single aggregate, and the mass of single aggregate we get it from the product of the volume of aggregate to the particle density, right? And so let's look at these numbers. You see that as the diameter of each aggregate goes down, okay, you have a very large number of aggregates, okay, very large number of aggregates, and even if you see that the soil mass is comparatively low, and that's because what we're kind of dealing with is a kind of a power function relationship between these volume calculations and mass calculations. Remember, the volume is always diameter to the power 3, and so we are kind of linking the like a power function to some kind of a linear function in mass. Each mass is aggregate is adding to the other aggregate mass linearly, whereas volumes are added in sort of a power. So that's why you see these huge numbers for the number of aggregates. Well, one of the interesting thing is that we know that each pore is associated with a single particle. So therefore, number of aggregates are going to be almost same as number of the pores, right? So that means a highly aggregated soil, of course, would have many pores. It would be a very porous, very highly porous medium, and this exercise, hypothetical exercise, helps us to see. So we have the number of pores. Now we should be able to estimate the volume of pores, because we know that the diameter of the pore and the particle of the pore is related, through those packing factors of alpha. And so if we just even use a very simple packing factor of just linear dependency alpha equal to 0.78, and if we go on calculate what is the total volume of the pores, okay, total volume of pores by doing what? We really estimate the volume of, diameter of the pore from here, right? So we get a pore diameter. We estimate the volume of that pore by, taking the pore to be a sphere, 4 by 3 pi r cube, right? And so you estimate what is the volume of an individual pore, multiply this number of aggregate and number of pores are same, you get a pore volume, okay, of 1.58 centimeter cube, okay, for pores having diameter of about 0.92, and those pores are about 3,860 in this particular example. And now, what if I really add all of these, in a cumulative manner, okay, or before that I really estimate, what is the total pore volume, and divide each quantity with that total. Okay, so I will sort of accumulate that fractional pore volume, fractional, to the total volume. You will see that these pore volumes would, when you account for all the pores, and here is your porosity for this particular scenario, right? This is the porosity for this particular scenario. So what generally we try to do is that we try to reconstruct a pore space in the, by making simple, very simple assumptions about how the aggregates are linked to the pore sizes, and how pore numbers can be linked to number of aggregates, and so all we need is some kind of a distribution, size distribution of the aggregates, and then it should allow us to really reconstruct what is going to be the individual pore diameter, somewhere going from 0.04 millimeter to say 0.92 millimeter for this particular case, and you see that the porosity we are able to construct, not only the total pore porosity we are able to construct, but we are able to construct the individual pore volume for a particular set of pore size. So we are in a sense therefore constructing a pore size distribution similar to what we did for particle size distribution. Okay, and so again, as you recall, our particle size, cumulative particle size volume was also a non-linear function, and so also our pore volume as a function of the diameter of the pore is also a non-linear function, and sort of tapering to about total porosity 0.3 when we really take into account all these sizes of the pores. Okay, so to summarize, building a network of the pores space from particle diameter, we first looked at how to relate the diameter of pore to the diameter of particle, and you know what, these are the places where you could be creative, you could make assumptions that really matches the natural pore size distribution, natural particle size distribution in a soil, and so you will be able to build more comprehensive geometries for or more statistically sort of appropriate pore size or porous geometry in a soil. right? And in our case, just to really give you an impression about how this is done, we really use the dry sieving data, and we are able to get the mass of soil for each size classes. We looked at the particle density to get the volume of each aggregate. Then we assume that the pores are spherical. We were able to then get the number of pores from number of aggregates, and then pore diameter we used to estimate the total pore volume, and then we accumulated those pores from incrementally from smallest pore to the largest pore, and this pore filling allowed us to estimate a pore volume fraction of the total porosity, starting from smaller to the larger pore. If you now come back and say that, well, I'm going to really find out how much water can be present, and so typically the smaller pores are going to contain water first, and so you sort of add incrementally larger size pores or water containing pores, you will be able to estimate how much water is present in such a pore space, or how much air is present in such a pore space. So this cubic arrangement may be replaced by statistical distributions. As I mentioned, you can be creative and create a very very up-to-date and very appropriate and almost close or mimic pretty much what is the geometry or pore size distribution. So a few take-homes from this mass-volume relationships. Essentially, we studied that spatial arrangement of soil particles and aggregates allows to have soil as a heterogeneous porous medium, because as the arrangement changes, the pore spaces manifest as a random geometry, different kinds of numbers for each pore size, and that's how we get a porous media in soil. And soil is a porous media which is quite heterogeneous. We also have seen that the total pore volume in soil can be characterized in terms of the bulk density and particle density. In particular, the ratio of the bulk density to particle density tells us the volume fraction of the solid phase, and therefore if you subtract that from 1, it really provides you the volume fraction of pore space. Pore size distribution also is a very key feature of soil, because it is not the bulk soil porosity alone is main property that characterizes pore space. It is the individual pores and their frequencies, their sizes, so that overall a sort of statistical distribution for pore geometry and aggregate size distribution are important attributes of soil as a solid phase. Then of course as we reduce the soil porosity because of reducing bulk density, we really go for soil compaction, and so compaction is another important outcome of soil bulk density. So this sort of ends our characterization of solid phase through the texture and structure, and then the mass volume relationships. So we sort of characterize the whole soil as a sort of domain in which different processes manifests. So from this lecture onwards, what we're going to look at different kinds of processes that occur in soil. We'll discuss about that. Thank you so much.